All right, guys. Well, welcome back to another episode here, Persuasion by the Pint. I'm Jonathan Taylor, along with
Sean McCool.
And this episode, we're on episode 9. So moving right along this week, Sean, we're going to discuss the topic of proof this week.
Right,
You being a copywriter, this is a great topic to delve into because...
And sales.
Yeah, and sales.
Any
because
type of sales, whether it's in print or in person.
That's right. Because, sales copy, when you're writing sales copy, it's just like salesmanship on paper, or you could take the opposite approach to outside selling. Whatever you're writing out in the form of a sales letter is good format for a presentation. So,
right. Yeah. I mean, a really good presentation either happens over time, a sales presentation.
Yeah.
But you could probably record that and it'd be a great sales letter once that person got it down, or that process down. So, but yeah, proof is one of those things that I see missing all the time.
Yeah.
I just finished some copy that somebody called me to do, and I'm not really doing that much anymore, but it's a quick, simple project.
Sure.
They had 24 follow-up emails. So, somebody goes to a webinar, watches it, but they don't buy.
Yeah.
So this is a follow-up series for that. And I just went through and did some basic edits, made it easier to read, things like that. But one of the things I noticed is how much they were missing proof.
Yeah.
Like everything was there. They were agitating the problems. They were, they had the formula basically down, but just there was a lot of opportunity missed for proof. And the reason is I think a lot of people don't understand how many types of proof there are.
Sure.
There's at least 6, and most people think of 1 or 2, and they tend to default, even good copywriters tend to default to 1 or 2 of them as a crutch and then forget about the other ones. So we'll go through those today. But first, I think we should talk about our beverage of the
what
day.
we're having to drink. And you brought this today, so I'll let you describe, because we haven't had this before.
We had
but
the
we
big
had
brother to this earlier. So we had a couple episodes ago, we had Suntory's whiskey as the company.
Yep.
And I don't remember what the actual name of it was, but it's the one we had before was more of an aged, and it was in a round bottle if you were watching on the video. This is actually right now is my favorite whiskey. It's almost more of a scotch than a whiskey. You can see it's very light. Partly because the bottle's almost gone, so more light's getting in.
We haven't finished this bottle.
That was mostly
this
me.
Was not
over the last 6 months. But this is literally my favorite whiskey right now. I think it's super smooth. I'll be interested to see what you think. I think this is at $35 a bottle. This is better than most $100 bottles I've had.
Well, it's very much like you said. It's like a scotch, and I enjoy scotch. So. Yeah. To me, it's great. It is very smooth. I'm not sure because I cannot remember the last one we. Yeah, it's hard to compare because
the other one was a lot smokier.
Yeah,
had a lot.
Yeah,
smokier
you're right.
Taste.
You're right.
So this is a little smoother, and this is one of those ones that could get you in trouble. It's funny when I bought this bottle from the guy. I was like, I'm looking for a good scotch, good whiskey. What do you recommend?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I got just the thing for you. And he took me to this and he said, now, be careful. He's like, this is really smooth.
Yeah.
And you can drain half a bottle before you even realize what's going on. He said, I had this it was a rainy afternoon. I was watching the game, and next thing I knew, I looked down and half the bottle was gone.
The bottle was gone.
Wow. I was like, well, that might be a problem that you need to look at, but, or it's a really good whiskey. I don't know which of the two, but
yeah, we're not encouraging any kind of,
no. So yeah, it's one of my favorites.
Well, speaking of proof, what proof is this?
That's a good question. Let me gently move the mic here.
It is good, though. Very smooth. I like it.
86. So, Japanese whiskey. And I think I said this on the last time we had this brand. The guy at the liquor store said that they get a lot of their malts and whatever's from Ireland. So it's a Japanese company, but it's more like Irish, Scottish, and Scotch, Irish whiskey or Scotch whiskey than anything else. So so that's that.
Very good.
We got time for one little digression.
Yeah,
from a good experience I had with a company.
Let's do it.
So a company that I've used for years, and I kind of got a new these little bands. If you're looking on video, I've got this wristband that you can wear, and it's got all your contact information on it. Your like your emergency contact. You can put a line of text on there. So I put on mine like O positive, no allergies. So they originally were for people who rode bikes.
Sure, to identify if they're...
So if you get in a wreck, somebody finds you, you've got the contact information. Now they've branched out to a lot of different sports. They got really popular. And I had not had one for a while, and I decided I wanted to go ahead and get one back. I think it's just it's just good to have. I mean, if you're traveling or anything, if your phone gets tossed from your car,
it's a great idea.
It's an easy way to wear a thing. So I ordered it. I went on the site. I ordered it. They do have veteran discounts and things like that, so that's always cool. But when I got the product, it came in. It was packaged nice, which is always cool. But inside the package, it had these two little things. And we're talking about persuasion and influence. And this kind of stuff it's not in the proof category, but I just wanted to bring it up. They sent this. First of all, they sent a $10 off any ID that you can share. It says tear and share with a friend. So, a lot of bikers, a lot of athletes travel in packs. So, I'll give this one to you if you want it.
Yep.
So that was cool. That's just a good referral marketing piece. They made referring easy. It's a wallet-sized card that you can tear off and carry with you and say, oh, by the way, But then the other thing that was really cool is they have these cards, and it's a handwritten note.
That I was noticing that. I was looking at
I was looking at it. I was like, I wonder if this is like one of those computer-generated handwritten notes. But I bought the band, and then as soon as I checked out, I saw this hat on the site too, but I'd already checked out. So I placed a second order for the hat.
Right.
So I ended up getting 2 separate shipments.
Sure.
And they both have different handwriting. They both had a card.
So they're literally right. I mean, they're just handwriting those out.
Yeah. So it looks like each person has their own card, like that works at the company. So this one is Gina. This one was Becky.
That's cool.
And it's got a picture of Becky on the horse, if you want to look at it. So like a childhood picture of Becky. This one's got a picture of Gina when she was a kid.
That's cool.
Fishing. And then on this card, what's interesting, these cards are different. They're not even the same on the questions they ask. So this one asks Gina, like, pets, what are your pets' names? So she puts, it's a Bichon Frise named Buttercup, your first car, an 86 Chrysler LeBaron, Lemon. First concert, Alabama, favorite color, blue, favorite movie, Lord of the Rings trilogy, celebrity crush was Pink and Shamar Moore, favorite mythical creature, unicorn, favorite animal, dog.
Even their cocktail of choice.
Yeah, and
I don't know if yours has.
Yeah, no, this does not have that. That's what I was saying. They're different. The cards are different, and then there's a pretty lengthy handwritten note on the back.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not just a one-liner. It's
that's really cool.
I was like, that's, and here we are talking about it on podcast.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you just don't see this at all.
That somebody is paying. I mean, that took. I don't know if she does this in her downtime or whatever, but still, somebody's paying hourly or whatever to get this done. That's a commitment to customer service, and it shows up. And it's just another sticking point. And I mean, this is not a cheap.
No,
this is heavy stock, full color.
I'm just going to read just as an example.
Yeah.
Because this one says, hello, ! I had a great time packing your order today. I've been on the road. I've been at Road ID for 8 years. It feels good knowing our products make a real difference in people's lives. Enjoy your new year. And she signs it, Becky. So,
yeah. So this
very
one,
cool.
So it's not scripted, because this one says, "Hello, I really enjoyed packing your order. I've worked at Road ID for a couple of years now and couldn't ask for a better work environment. Great people and products with a great purpose. I really hope you feel empowered and safe while using your new Road ID." Yeah, so wow. I mean, that's just classy.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Their packaging was first class. Their product has always been first class. And I know when I got this a few years back, they didn't do all this. So they've kind of upped their game.
So it's roadid.com. Roadid.com. Very cool site. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
That is a good, you think about that if you are, I don't do a lot of biking, but
Well,
I do a travel. Yeah.
You travel a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Anybody that travels, you're involved in something like that. And somebody needs to, if you ever had to get blood, it's helpful to know that. I mean, you and I were both in the military, so we both had dog tags, which were identifying.
And you can choose what you want on there.
Sure.
But because of that exact thing, I was like, okay, I know it's important that they know blood.
Yep.
Because you can get it where you store things at their site with an 800 number.
Right.
I'm like, well, that's 30 seconds. I don't want the paramedic to waste. So I'm just putting no positive, no allergies.
Yeah.
So they can immediately, they don't have to guess. They don't have to do anything. And then they can call the next of kin and
very
all that
cool
kind of stuff. So, but yeah, even if you travel a lot for work.
Yeah.
I mean, phones die. Phones get tossed from cars in accidents. To have something that is attached to your body.
Yep.
I mean, so unless you lose your hand or something, I mean, it's a really good way.
Yeah.
And it's well known in the paramedics and community. So if they see one, they know what it is.
Yeah.
So just want to bring that up as
That's
a great
cool.
example.
Cool story. You know what? Last point. It makes me think. When I see stuff like this, I love this approach, and it makes me think. I know we mentioned Joe Girard time in the past, and there's some good things associated. Joe Girard, was it Joe Girard or Joe Girardi? Joe Girard, greatest salesman. Yeah, greatest salesman. He's in the Guinness Book of World Records for being the for selling the most automobiles. In 1 year. And so, one of the things that separated him from so many other salesmen, and I just remember this, and I've tried to apply it in my business, is just understanding that, doing something different, going that extra mile, adding that personal touch to everything that you do. He would write, handwrite cards. And sometimes it wasn't just, it was not just a thank you card for doing business with me. It was just a, hey, how you doing? It's Labor Day, I'm just wanted to see, how your Labor Day went, or, just something out of the blue. He would, not choose, everybody thinks, well, you send a Christmas card and all that stuff. He would send cards out of the blue that were typically during times that most people don't even think about. But that garnered him a lot of attention. People would call him. He was never that kind of guy that would be running out in the parking lot.
And that was pre-internet.
Yeah. It was.
That was like, and now it's so much easier, and people still don't do it. Like you could fire off an email,
right?
For these different holidays and personalize them, and people don't even do that. I mean, myself included. I mean, I dropped the ball on that. Outside
of this, there's one. In my experience, I've seen one other company that doing business with so many, and it was just a local fence company that did some business a few years ago that wrote a handwritten note afterward. So, I mean, it's rarely done. So.
And they didn't just write a note. I mean, they were very intentional about having the cards printed up for the people with their picture on it.
Yeah,
it really humanizes.
That's a cool touch.
Humanizes everything.
Yeah,
and it makes you want to do business. And the thing is, like, they don't have a lot of cross products,
right,
that they could sell you. Like,
no,
the lifetime customer value is actually not that high.
No,
so the fact that they're taking that kind of step,
right.
With a fairly low lifetime customer value, which we could talk about.
And not a super expensive product. Yeah. Maybe I'm sure the margins are really are really good. So yeah.
All right. Well, let's jump into some proof.
Okay. So let's talk about, so I guess maybe start with, claims and proof. When we talk about people making claims, you mentioned it earlier too. Sometimes, copywriters can miss the boat when it comes to backing it up with proof. They can make all these claims in your copy, and the biggest part of persuasion is not only letting people know, but then following that up, with proof. How can I support what I'm saying?
Right.
And I mean, and you just mentioned it earlier before we started that sometimes, this can be left out. Some people can leave this out without realizing it, and supporting their claim.
Yeah, and you see it a lot in especially the bigger market type industries, weight loss, things like that. You'll see where they'll use testimonials. That's a great form of proof, and they use it, but they miss a lot of other types of proof. Right. By the way, we're pulling this from a book called The Architecture of Persuasion.
Michael Masterson, a.k.a. Mark Ford. Actually, that's the other way around. It's actually Mark Ford, a.k.a.
Michael
Yeah,
Masterson.
right.
Back in the day, he was going by Michael Masterson.
Who wrote for
Agora. He was the, I believe, if I remember correctly, he was the original. He wrote the original letter for the Oxford Club, which was a huge direct mail piece. He was Bill Bonner's right-hand man at Agora.
Bill Bonner. Haven't heard that name in so long.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
But he was probably the first copywriter
Yeah.
business partner that Bill Bonner had. So
Daily Reckoning, Agora, yeah.
Early to Rise was
yeah.
Michael Masterson's before he sold it off to Craig Ballantyne, I think, who has it now. So, yeah. So, I mean, the guy that wrote this knows what he's talking about.
Sure.
He's written some multi-million-dollar sales letters and built businesses in the tens and hundreds of millions of dollars. So he knows what he's talking about. So claims are going from his book, and this is just one chapter of this book. If you're looking for a great, easy-to-read book on persuasion, I highly recommend Architecture of Persuasion. You may have to go. I don't know if it's on. I assume it's on Amazon.
It is.
Is that where you found it?
I downloaded the Kindle.
Because I have mine I have the hard copy from when I was at.
It looks thoroughly used.
It is. It's one of my favorite because it's in story form, so it's kind of a cool story. So he says claims are statements that support your promises. So you've got your promise that happens first. You'll lose. Promises and claims are kind of very similar, right? So a big promise might be grow twice the garden at half the cost. That was a famous ad back in the day that ran in all the big magazines. Another one is triple your sales income within 12 months. That's a promise. There's a new railroad across America, and it's making some people very rich. Actually Porter Stansberry wrote that one.
Yep.
So those are like big promises, and then claims are things that support that big promise,
right?
But they're not proof. And I think this is where people get confused and they don't see the distinction between a claim and a proof. And you think a claim is kind of it's proof, but it's really not. It's just a claim. So a claim might be you'll save time and energy.
Yeah.
Well, great. And as a writer and as a business owner, it feels like you're telling them something valuable and something that will persuade and influence them. But really, you're not saying anything.
Yeah.
It's just a platitude or whatever that's called.
Right.
So
you're piquing their interest for sure, but ultimately you haven't convinced them completely that.
And anybody can say that, right?
Right.
I mean, it'll save you time and energy. So what really makes copy work and sales presentations work and websites work is when you can back up those claims with some type of proof. And like we said, there are 6 types of proof, and really, they kind of boil down to. There's 2 that are very similar, so there are 6 types, so we can go through those.
Okay. I've got to start, and I've listed them out. Scientific studies.
Yep.
Which are always very strong when you can use that. Sometimes, people can post anything online nowadays and say this was. Research shows that blah, 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 and you have to, even today, in our day and age, you have to be careful. I mean.
Oh, yeah. A lot of that stuff's pulled from, it's 6 sources.
Numbers, right.
It's 6 sources from the original study.
Right.
Yes, you definitely have to be careful about that. But when you can do it, especially, and that's one thing I've learned to do as a copywriter when I was doing a lot of copy, is if I saw a stat like that in an article, say like, Fortune magazine or something.
Sure.
Where they reference a study, you could so there's a couple ways you could do it. And this goes into another type of proof, which is the authoritative citation. So authoritative citation might be Forbes says blah, 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 right?
Right.
Whereas the scientific study, you're getting back to whoever actually made the study and things like that. So a lot of times you'll see magazines, you'll see blogs, you'll see things quote scientific studies very generally, and you can find some really good, strong proof, and sometimes even better than what they share for your business if you dig into the original study. Basically, you just have to follow the link trail back to the original study to find what it really said. It's also a great way to, if everybody in your industry is using that stat, and you can go into the study and find something that's a little contrary, then you can really turn heads by using that bit of proof or by showing how everybody else didn't really do the research. This is what it actually says, and you become the bigger authority because you did more research.
Yep.
So, so one of the examples it gave in here is, according to the Vacuum Industry Council, it takes the average housewife 1.2 hours to thoroughly vacuum her house. By comparison, our customers report getting the job done in 38 minutes. So that would be a study for a vacuum cleaner sales guy. So
sure.
And there's all types. You work in a very kind of sciencey, in your sales.
I work with it's interesting because in sales, I work with a number of engineers in manufacturing. So, and they are very big proponents, and they demand proof. It's not enough. No claim is sufficient for them. They will ask you, and they will want you to back it up with a tremendous amount of proof, so that they can see, because it's all data driven, and they're always looking at numbers and wanting to see how this can benefit. And same whether it's marketing, whether it's selling, some product that will help them become more efficient. I don't care what it is. Yeah. They have to see the proof. Burden of proof is ultimately, I would say most consumers, I would say there's certain consumers that demand more, but as a copywriter or anybody that's in sales and marketing, you always have to be considering that as something you've got to, improve on.
Yeah, and most people won't know to ask for it. Like, they're never going to ask you for it, or you're never going to realize that that's why you didn't make the sale, because, it's your industry, especially with scientific proof. Like, they don't know to ask for it. Like, especially if it's somebody new coming in the industry or anything like that, even weight loss or, some of the big industries like that, they're not going to know, some of the detailed numbers and scientific studies. And it's a great, easy way. And the thing is, you probably know this stuff anyway if you're up on your industry. Mm-hmm. Like, it's right there at your fingertips more than likely. You know what question to ask Google to find the studies to put in there. So it's really just being lazy if you don't put it in there.
Sure.
And you don't have to worry about putting it in. If you're writing a sales presentation or you're writing a piece of sales copy or you're putting a page on your website, get the rough draft out. Mm-hmm. And then go back and add these pieces later. Like, don't stop the flow of writing, especially when you're writing. Or don't try to, stop a sales conversation and go find it. Like, have this already, either write your rough draft and go back and fill it in, or if it's a live presentation, do your research ahead of time and have that ready to go. Yeah. So scientific study, authoritative citation is pretty simple. It's taking a big, well-known, established, authoritative name and kind of riding on their coattails. Warren Buffett says, Fortune magazine says, Men's Health says, you're using their credibility in your presentation, and it works like gangbusters. Yeah. So that's two. So what's another one?
Logical argument. I guess in when we talk about logical argument, it's explaining why it makes sense. So, we've heard the saying in persuasion that you got to persuade not through logic, but by, using the heart. But you also once you garner their attention, you do have to show some logical reasoning for moving ahead. Yeah, a
good example that I always remember is, people. So the saying is, people buy for emotional reasons, but they back it up with logic. Right. So if you get me really emotional about buying a Porsche 911 GT3 Carrera, Target Top, I can get really emotional about that, but I'm not probably going to actually pull the trigger until I can come up with some logical reasons to convince
the wife,
everybody in the family, and myself, and the accountant, and everybody else that's okay. So so if
that's like the cherry on the top. If you've got me. If you can just give me something,
man,
that I can work home
with, and it's 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds, so I can get on the on ramp more safely. or less safely, depending on how you look at it. You know, it's got 14 airbags, so it's a super safe. It's the safest sports car on the road.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to have a sports car, this is the one you want to have because it's the safest on the road.
Well,
you know,
it's
whatever
like,
it is.
Yeah, right. When you're buying, say, for instance, a German-made quality, you know, do you want a vehicle that you can, you know, that'll last you a decade if you want? I mean,
Right.
It'd still be driving. You know, a quality engineered vehicle. What's that going to save you over time? You know,
resale value.
Resale value in terms of maintenance. How much money are you going to have to put into a German engineered car?
Right.
Very little, because the Germans are synonymous with high quality. So,
So any of those types of logical arguments, and they don't have to be stats and numbers. That's a different type, which we'll talk about in just a second. But it can literally be as something. A lot of the logical arguments can sound like a claim, but they're not quite. They're slightly different. So, for instance, I'm trying to think. So, I know one that I read in a persuasion book one time or course was, you know, as a kind of a takeaway or an argument, you would say, you know, and a lot of people don't believe in Santa Claus, but that doesn't mean, you know, Santa Claus isn't fun to talk about or something like that. So it's a form of logical argument. I can't remember exactly how it goes, but there's ways to use phrasing and things like that to make a logical argument without using facts or figures or anything else. But you're just saying something very logical.
Yeah.
You know, so that's when you say logical argument, that's what it is. And like the resale value is a good example. Now, if you start throwing in numbers, then we move into the next thing, which is statement of fact.
Yeah.
So a statement of fact would be, you know, using our vacuum example, and the example he uses in the book is our vacuum weighs only 3.2 pounds.
Sure.
And you could even follow that up with a logical argument that is like, that's less than the average, you know, gallon of milk. You know, that's half the weight of a gallon of milk. You know, so that people can get an idea of what that actually is in a logical way. So a statement of fact is probably going to have some type of number or stat, thing like that in it about your product or about your service. You know, it takes 3 weeks for us to go through through your mortgage process.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a statement of fact. That's just what it takes.
Yeah.
We need 30 days to close a house. Those kind of things. We're going to need 2 samples of, you know, ID or whatever. You know, those are statement of facts, and you see that a lot in the physical B2B. Like you'd have a lot of statement of facts in yours, but then you're going to want to back them up with why that matters. So these things are they interplay with each other if you do it right. The problem is you'll see, especially in physical products, people will use a lot of statement of facts. Like it weighs 3.2 pounds, or the dimensions, or the wattage if it's an oven, but then they don't give you any scientific studies of why that matters. They don't give you any logical argument of why you'd want that. All that stuff is missing. So statement of facts is probably the easiest. And a lot of people think they don't have it if they have a service product, but you do. It's like the length of time it takes, or the average, you know, it could be a lot of different things. I know Clayton Makepeace, who's a copywriter in the financial space. He would even talk about, if it was a digital book, he would still say how many pages it was. You know, it's a 360-page book on blah, 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 blah. You know, the free report. It's a hefty 370-page.
That just shows you what the value kind of
like, oh, there must be a lot of
equating,
information in there. All right. So what's another one?
We mentioned earlier, or you did, quote experts, authorities. We've mentioned this numerous times throughout, you know, the episodes, going back to the psychology of influence, using social proof and authorities. Anytime you, like you said, Warren Buffett, a quote from him that supports, you know, basically supports your argument. That's always good. You know, anybody that's a financial expert, or, you know, any expert within your industry that you can utilize is good. So,
yeah, and one thing, it doesn't have to be about your product.
No.
Specifically. You know, you could you could quote LeBron James if you sell something in the basketball space,
Right.
About the importance of exercise
Sure.
or drills in basketball. If you sell like a basketball program where you teach young people, young players, here's 6 drills you can do.
Yeah.
And if you can find an article somewhere that says, LeBron spends, 27 minutes a day doing ball handling drills.
Yeah.
Maybe it was in Rolling Stone magazine or ESPN magazine.
Sure. You just pull that out.
You can pull that out, say, look, the best, one of the best players in the world. I don't want to get into debate here. I don't even watch basketball that much. Uses some of the same drills that we teach in our program.
Right.
And it's kind of an implied endorsement, but not really.
Sure. You're borrowing that, but it supports what you're saying, and you're not really, if you're using it in the sense that you're, it supports. I guess it supports your claim. I mean, he's not directly endorsing, but it supports what you're trying to claim,
right?
Or the proof that you're trying to give.
And I will say this, because I ran into this when we did financial copy, and I'm not an attorney or lawyer or anything like that, but I will say that there's a term. I think it's called. I think it's like trading off someone's name, something like that. You have to be careful about how much you use that. Yeah. Like if it's in the headline of your promotion or something like that, LeBron James says blah blah blah, and then you immediately start talking about your product. That's too much of an implied endorsement,
right?
And depending on the person, like Warren Buffett, I know we could not use his name in a headline, but we could use it after like a certain number of words or pages. We could use his name as an example, but we could not legally. We could not use it in a headline or
Warren Buffett
like
says,
even though he'd said it. Because we were actually selling. Now you could do it in an article, but if it was a sales piece, you couldn't do it because you're trading on them, making money off of their name. So just something to be aware of, not something to get bogged down in, but for legal, check with compliance or whoever you work with on that. So we've talked about scientific study, we've talked about logical argument, authoritative citations, and statement of facts. So there's 2 left.
Let's see, testimonials.
Testimonial we've talked quite a bit about.
Yeah.
And those are the simplest, but I will say a lot of people use testimonials wrong. They're way too long.
I agree. They're way too long. Yep.
And the other thing is a lot of people you could put a headline on your testimonial. And a lot of people miss that.
I think they can be too long, but then another thing that I see is they're not they're not specific enough.
Right.
Lack of specificity, and then sometimes too lengthy. So,
really, you want your testimonial to prove one point that you're trying to make around wherever that is in your presentation,
right?
Instead of trying to make 16 points with one person's testimonial.
Yeah.
So if it's
one vague, broad thing that really doesn't tell me anything.
Yeah.
Sean said I was a great copywriter. Like okay, what does that tell me?
Yeah, as opposed to, Jonathan is brilliant at writing headlines.
Yeah.
Now I know, okay, you're the guy to go to for that or whatever. Right. Or I thought, if I taught you, then your testimonial back to me, Sean taught me 7 tricks about how to write a headline that saved me 46 hours a week, whatever, something like that. So get really specific and don't be afraid to ask people either to rewrite their testimonials or to write their testimonials for them and have them sign off on it.
Which is typically the easier way to go about it. Because
it's easier for them.
Yeah.
It's easier
people
for you.
People are busy. They have other things to do, and they would almost 9 times out of 10, most people are like, I couldn't imagine writing that, and they would, no, you're doing them a favor because most people are busy and they don't have time, and if you ask them to sit down and write you a testimonial, they just don't even really know where to start, nor do they really have the extra time and would prefer you. And I think that's one thing that I learned years ago, that most authors, a lot of high-profile authors will, in soliciting testimonials for their books, have them pre-written and sent to the people that they want, and they just
sign off.
Let me know if this, if you like it, check off. We'll post it.
Yeah,
sounds great. So,
or if there's something you want to change, it's funny because LinkedIn does that.
Yeah,
like when you ask for a recommendation, it lets you give feedback on the recommendation or ask for changes to it. So don't be afraid at all to write the testimonial for people, but you do need to get them to sign off. You can't just be writing testimonials and making them up. That's not cool either. So, and then the last
come back
one,
to bite you.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
And then the last one is an analogy.
Yep.
So analogies can be really analogies, metaphors. I use metaphors a lot in my sales copy. I think because they're like little tiny stories, and the humans are stories, and we're going to talk about that, I think, on the next episode. When you can get that stories, Clayton Makepeace again, talking about him, he loves using cliches in his copy and he says a lot of people will cut cliches from writing. He likes to add them in because they're just accepted as fact.
Yeah.
Because they stick around for a reason.
Sure.
Right? So he likes to use them to prove a point or to make a point that would normally take him, 100 words, he can say in like 6 words because it's a cliche that people just believe.
Yeah.
And they're used to hearing. It's familiar, so they don't question it if it's familiar.
Yeah.
So you can do things like that. This one here is like, so again, they're talking about the vacuum cleaner. Like a tornado attacking everything in its path, our high-powered pump creates a vacuum that sucks up dust, mites, and microbes you can't even see. Right? I mean, like instantly you get a picture.
Right.
Whereas a lot of the other stuff that I've said in this episode with these examples, like there's not a real clear picture that gets in your mind.
Right.
So that part of your mind is not turned on. But as soon as you use an analogy or a metaphor or a simile, like your brain sees the picture.
Yeah.
And it just, like, you can literally see the vacuum, like with the little, tornado.
Yeah,
like you
can see
in
your
that.
mind.
Yeah. So it's really, really powerful. And a lot of people they just don't even think to do that.
Right.
But really great salespeople do that naturally.
Yeah.
Like they can read the buyer and they can they can just do it. So, so there's one last question we wanted to cover, and then we'll move on.
How much proof do you need?
So this was, I think, this is like a little call-out box in the book, and I think it's really, really good. So I'm just going to read it. I'll give credit where credit is due with Michael. It says, how much proof do you need? Here's a useful technique that will help ensure that your copy has all the proof it needs. After completing a draft of the sales argument or sales presentation, go back and highlight or underline every promise and every claim. Then look for a supportive claim or two for every promise and a proof or two for every claim. So for every big claim you're making, you need to have 1 or 2 pieces of proof. And if you can't find it, you need to cut the claim from your presentation, whether it's in writing or in person. And I think that's a really good way to look at it.
Yeah,
if you can't back up the claim, you really shouldn't be saying it.
Right.
So I think that's it.
Eliminate those
that.
Things that you cannot back up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bottom line.
Because you're just creating doubt.
Yeah.
Not for everybody, but for enough people that it's doing more harm than good.
Yeah.
So,
and we'll be posting a link to this book, and we'll add it to, if you go to our website, persuasionbythepint.com, you can see, if you go up to the top, you can click recommended books. You'll see a list of recommended books we have on persuasion. We'll be adding this to the list, and check it out. I think it's definitely worth your time to go through it. This is Michael Masterson. He's always, he's a great writer. So,
and it's not just for copywriters. It's written for copywriters.
Yeah.
But you can pull it if you do any type of presentation, any type of persuasion, even a speech.
Yeah.
It's a great outline for a speech or anything else, a TED Talk, anything you want to do like that.
Absolutely.
You could apply these principles.
Yep.
So, good stuff, man.
Yep. Hey, thanks for listening. And again, persuasionbythepint.com. You can download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and any other platforms for your podcast. Again, thanks for listening. Until next time, we'll see you then.
See you then.
Awesome.